There comes a moment when you begin to feel the quiet. The phone no longer lights up the way it once did. Invitations slow down, conversations grow shorter, people who once knew every detail about your life now seem oddly distant. And without warning, a question starts echoing inside you. Did I do something wrong? Stoic philosophy offers a steadier perspective. It reminds us that not every departure is a punishment, and not every distance signals failure. Sometimes what appears to be loss is alignment quietly taking shape. As you become more grounded, more selective, and more honest with yourself, the dynamics around you inevitably shift. Not because you became cold or arrogant, but because you stopped betraying yourself to keep others comfortable. Marcus Aurelius wrote that our focus should be on becoming better, not on being followed. That truth can feel lonely before it feels freeing. Today, we explore what it truly means when people begin to leave your life and why, from a Stoic perspective, this phase may be one of the clearest signs that you are stepping into your strength. 1. You stopped playing a role they felt comfortable with. For a long time, many people were not connected to who you truly were. They were attached to a version of you that felt safe, predictable, and emotionally convenient. That version knew when to stay silent, when to agree without fully agreeing, when to smooth tension and absorb discomfort, to keep things easy even when it cost you internally. This wasn't deception, it was adaptation. But adaptation, when practiced for too long, becomes a role. And roles are fragile, they only survive as long as you keep performing. Stoic philosophy cautions us about this kind of life. Epictetus reminded us that when we shape ourselves around the expectations of others, we slowly abandon the only thing that truly belongs to us, our character. Not through dramatic choices, but through small daily concessions. A swallowed opinion, a forced smile, a boundary left unspoken. Over time, the weight builds. Eventually, you stop adjusting your tone to avoid friction. You stop explaining yourself just to be understood. You stop nodding along with ideas that no longer align with who you are becoming. And that's when the real shift happens, not inside you, but around you. Because the moment you stop performing, the comfort others felt begins to fade. When you show up more honest, more grounded, and less eager to please, some people feel unsettled. Not because you did something wrong, but because the dynamic changed without their permission. They were comfortable with the version of you that fit neatly into their expectations. They weren't prepared for the version of you that stands on principle. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a person should focus on being upright, not on being applauded. But this wisdom carries a cost. When you stop seeking approval, relationships that relied on your compliance begin to weaken. Ask yourself honestly, if a relationship only worked when you stayed smaller, quieter, or more accommodating, what was it truly built on? Real connection does not require self-erasure. Real respect does not demand performance. When you step out of the role, some people interpret it as distance. Others see it as rejection. In truth, it is neither. It is simply reality asserting itself. This is why friends may feel less close, why conversations feel different, why certain people drift away without conflict or explanation. They are not reacting to who you are, they are reacting to who you no longer pretend to be. Stoicism teaches that we cannot control how others respond, only how truthfully we live. When you reclaim your voice, your time, and your boundaries, you reveal which relationships were rooted in mutual respect and which were built on convenience. And here is the difficult truth many avoid. Some people don't miss you. They miss the role you played in keeping them comfortable, the one who always listened, always absorbed emotional weight, always made things easier. When that role ends, the relationship loses its familiar shape. What feels like loss is often alignment. You didn't become colder, You didn't become selfish, you became more aligned with yourself. And while this version of you may stand in quieter rooms, it stands on solid ground. Stoic growth is not about being surrounded, it is about being centered. If people step back when you stop performing, let that distance speak. It is not punishment. It is a signal that you stopped living as a character in someone else's story and started living as yourself. 2. Your standards quietly rose. Some changes don't announce themselves. There is no confrontation, no dramatic speech, no declaration. Your standards rise silently. You stop tolerating subtle disrespect. You stop responding to messages that drain you. You stop saying yes when your body and mind are already exhausted. From the outside, it looks like distance. From the inside, it feels like relief. Stoic philosophy teaches that self-respect is not loud. It doesn't argue or chase. It simply withdraws from what no longer aligns. As Epictetus reminded us, dignity is not something others give you. It is something you either protect or surrender. When your standards rise, discomfort enters your social world. People used to easy access to your time feel confused. Those who benefited from your flexibility feel rejected. Those who mistook kindness for availability begin to feel entitled. Because you didn't explain the change, they assume something is wrong, but nothing is wrong. You simply stopped negotiating your worth. Raising standards doesn't mean arrogance, it means selectivity. You begin valuing your energy as finite, not endlessly renewable. You realize peace costs less than people-pleasing, and clarity costs less than constant compromise. Marcus Aurelius warned against acting against one's own nature, yet many relationships subtly pressure us to do exactly that, to lower expectations, tolerate what erodes us, and remain agreeable at the expense of inner order. When you stop doing this, dynamics shift. You stop laughing off crossed lines. You stop overextending to keep connections alive. You stop rewarding inconsistency with loyalty. For some, that feels like loss. Standards act as mirrors. They reveal how others have been treating you all along. Stoicism is clear. Harmony should never require self-betrayal. If a relationship survives only when you accept less than you deserve, its cost is too high. This is why friends may feel distant, why fewer people reach out, why connections fade quietly. Not because you asked for too much, but because you stopped accepting too little. When standards rise, people face a choice: meet you at a healthier level or fall away. Many choose the latter, not from malice, but from limitation. Not everyone grows just because you do. Stoic wisdom reminds us that quality outweighs quantity. A smaller circle aligned with your values brings more peace than a crowded room built on compromise. When you honor your standards, your social gravity changes. Some draw closer, many drift away. That is not failure, that is filtration. 3. Growth created an uneven path. Growth is rarely shared at the same pace. We like to believe those who start with us will naturally keep up, that shared history guarantees shared direction. Stoic philosophy offers a more realistic view. People grow at different speeds, in different directions, for different reasons. When growth becomes uneven, distance appears, not through conflict or betrayal, but through quiet misalignment. You begin asking different questions. You value depth over distraction, clarity over comfort. Others may remain anchored to patterns you've outgrown. Conversations feel repetitive. Complaints loop endlessly. Habits remain untouched. What once bonded you now drains you. This isn't superiority, it's divergence. Marcus Aurelius wrote that reason should be followed even when it leads away from familiar paths. Growth reshapes the terrain. When one person disciplines their inner life while another remains unchanged, shared ground shrinks. You feel it before you understand it. Silences stretch. Laughter thins. Time together feels heavy instead of nourishing. Stoicism teaches us not to force harmony where nature has removed it. Dragging others along your path breeds resentment on both sides. Growth cannot be transferred, gifted, or imposed. Each person must choose it in their own time. Many people make the mistake of slowing their growth to preserve comfort, but slowing growth to maintain connection is a quiet form of self-abandonment. Seneca warned that bad company corrupts not through cruelty, but stagnation. Stay too long where you are no longer challenged, and you begin shrinking to fit. As your inner life becomes more ordered and intentional, fewer relationships can move with you. Not everyone wants the discipline growth demands. Some prefer familiarity, some prefer distraction, some prefer staying the same. That doesn't make them wrong. It makes continued closeness unsustainable. This is why friendships fade without explanation. No argument, no ending, just the quiet realization that you are no longer walking the same road. Stoicism doesn't ask you to resent this, it asks you to accept it. You are not obligated to remain emotionally close simply because you once were. Past proximity does not guarantee permanent alignment. Growth changes the landscape, and relationships must adapt or fall away. Here is the quiet truth many avoid. When growth creates distance, it often means you are listening more closely to your inner compass. You are choosing coherence over conformity. That path can feel lonely at first, but Stoic philosophy reminds us that solitude born of growth is not isolation. It is preparation. Preparation for relationships that meet you where you are now, not where you used to be. If fewer people can walk beside you as you evolve, it does not mean you are moving in the wrong direction. It means you are moving in a direction that demands intention, awareness, and strength. Growth rarely keeps crowds, it shapes individuals. Those who continue with you do so not out of habit, but out of genuine alignment. 4. You stopped feeding emotional dependency. Some relationships don't survive on connection, they survive on dependency. At first, it doesn't appear unhealthy. You're simply being supportive. You listen, you reassure, you show up whenever someone feels overwhelmed, confused, or stuck. Over time, people begin to associate your presence with emotional relief rather than mutual exchange. You become the stabilizer, the regulator, the one carrying emotional weight. Stoic philosophy warns us about this dynamic. When we repeatedly take responsibility for emotions that are not ours, the line between compassion and self-erasure begins to blur. Epictetus taught that each person must carry their own inner state. The moment you shoulder that burden for others, you weaken both yourself and them. Eventually, you stop, not from cruelty or indifference, but from clarity. You stop responding instantly. You stop fixing problems that are not yours to solve. You stop absorbing stress that never belonged to you, and that is when certain people pull away, because what they were attached to was not you, it was the emotional regulation you provided. When that disappears, the relationship loses its anchor. This is why distance can feel sudden. One moment you felt essential, the next you feel optional. But the truth is simpler. When emotional dependency is no longer fed, it collapses under its own weight. Stoicism teaches self-sufficiency not as coldness, but as strength. A healthy relationship is built on two complete individuals, not one person leaning endlessly on the other. When one side grows stronger and stops compensating, imbalance becomes visible. You may notice this shift quietly. Conversations shorten. People reach out only when they need something. When you no longer offer the same level of emotional availability, interest fades. This is not because you failed them. It is because you refuse to continue a pattern that was unsustainable. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that we are not meant to live as emotional crutches. Our role is to act with kindness, not to sacrifice inner order. When you stop feeding dependency, you honor both yourself and the Stoic principle of personal responsibility. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Some people prefer dependency because it allows them to avoid their own growth. As long as you absorb their emotions, they do not have to develop resilience, reflection, or discipline. When you step back, they are forced to face themselves. Some rise to that challenge, many do not. So they leave, not because you became less caring, but because you stopped enabling emotional avoidance. What looks like abandonment is often resistance to accountability. Stoicism teaches that true compassion sometimes looks like restraint. Allowing others to sit with their own emotions is not neglect, it is respect. If certain relationships fade when you reclaim emotional boundaries, understand what is happening. You did not lose connection, you released imbalance. In doing so, you created space for relationships rooted in mutual presence rather than emotional dependence. Fewer people may remain, but those who do will meet you as an equal, not as a refuge. That is not loss, that is emotional maturity taking shape. 5. Silence replaced constant validation. There was a time when your presence was loud in subtle ways. You explained yourself often, you reassured people, you filled space with words so nothing felt uncertain or uncomfortable. Not because you were insecure, but because you cared about being understood. Over time, that habit becomes emotional labor. You anticipate reactions, you soften statements, you justify decisions that need no permission. Stoic philosophy sees this clearly. The need for constant validation is a quiet surrender of authority. Epictetus warned that when you rely on external approval to feel grounded, you hand control of your peace to forces outside yourself. At some point, you stop doing that. You speak when it matters. You remain silent when it doesn't. You no longer feel compelled to explain every shift, choice, or boundary. Silence replaces performance, and that silence changes how people experience you. Those accustomed to constant reassurance begin to feel uneasy. They interpret quiet as distance or coldness. But what changed was not your care. It was your need to be constantly understood. Stoicism values restraint not because words are dangerous, but because unnecessary words weaken presence. When you stop filling every gap with explanation, you allow relationships to reveal what they were built on. Some people drift when validation disappears. They relied on feedback, affirmation, and constant confirmation. When that stream dries up, they feel unanchored. Marcus Aurelius wrote that one should not waste energy defending character. Live well and let actions speak. This kind of silence is not withdrawal, it is trust in your alignment. As you grow, you realize something important. People who truly respect you do not require constant confirmation. They sense consistency, they feel integrity, they do not panic when you are quiet. But relationships built on reassurance struggle without it. This is why friends may feel less close. Conversations change shape. There is less checking in, less emotional back and forth. Not because you care less, but because you no longer feed insecurity, yours or theirs. Stoicism teaches that peace comes from reducing dependence on reactions. When you stop chasing understanding, you allow misunderstanding to exist without correcting it. This is not apathy, it is confidence, and confidence can feel threatening to those who relied on your explanations to feel secure. Silence also creates space, space for observation, space for discernment, space for truth to surface without interference. In that quiet, you see who connects beyond words and who stayed only for reassurance. Many relationships end here, not with conflict but with absence. That absence reveals what sustained the bond. 6. You chose peace over familiarity. Familiarity holds quiet power. It keeps you surrounded even when it no longer serves you. It feels safe simply because it is known. Many relationships survive not because they are healthy, but because they are familiar. You know the rhythm. You know the roles. You know what to expect, even if what you expect is draining or misaligned. For a long time, familiarity feels like connection, until one day it doesn't. Stoic philosophy teaches that inner peace is not found by maintaining every bond. It is protected through discernment. Seneca warned that constant exposure to what unsettles the mind erodes character, not through chaos, but through repetition. At some point, you notice the cost. Tension before certain conversations, exhaustion after certain interactions, relief when distance grows. That is when the choice appears. Do you keep what is familiar or choose what is peaceful? Choosing peace is rarely dramatic. You don't cut people off. You don't explain endlessly. You stop forcing proximity when your nervous system asks for space. You decline invitations without guilt. You shorten conversations that spiral into negativity. You stop revisiting the same emotional loops out of loyalty. Slowly, familiarity loosens its grip. For some, this feels like abandonment. They confuse access with closeness. When you no longer show up out of habit, they interpret it as distance. From your side, it is regulation. It is discernment. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the mind must be guarded more carefully than the body. Choosing peace honors that discipline. You stop sacrificing inner order to preserve external comfort. This choice reshapes relationships. Familiar bonds that relied on routine begin to fade. Without constant presence, little remains to hold them together. The connection was habit, not alignment. This is why friends may stop being close when you change, not because you rejected them, but because you stopped prioritizing proximity over well-being. Stoicism does not teach withdrawal. It teaches selective engagement. Fewer people who respect your boundaries are worth more than many who disrupt your equilibrium. Peace simplifies, it removes excess, it reduces noise, and in that clarity, you see how much familiarity was costing you. When you choose peace, some drift away, not as punishment, but as consequence. Stoic growth requires letting go of what no longer supports your inner stability. Familiarity feels warm, but peace feels right. One comforts in the short term, the other sustains you over time. If your world becomes smaller after choosing peace, understand what that signals. You are no longer maintaining connections out of habit. You are allowing your life to reflect your values. And that is not loneliness, it is order. In Stoic terms, choosing peace over familiarity is one of the clearest signs that you are no longer living reactively. You are living deliberately. And those who remain will do so not because you have always been there, but because being there still makes sense. 7. You entered a solitary phase of alignment. There is a phase of life that arrives quietly. No announcement, no clear beginning. Just a growing sense that your world has become smaller, slower, more inward. Fewer messages, more space, more time alone with your own thoughts. At first, it can feel unsettling. You wonder if something is missing, if connection is fading, if you somehow fell behind socially. Stoic philosophy views this phase differently. This is not regression, it is alignment. Marcus Aurelius spent long periods in solitude, not to escape others, but to refine himself. The Stoics understood that before life expands outward in a meaningful way, it often contracts inward to restore order. When you stop chasing approval, stop feeding dependency, stop performing roles, and stop maintaining familiarity for its own sake, a natural result follows. Fewer people remain close, not because you failed, but because you created space. This solitary phase is not empty, it is structured. It is where values settle and your inner voice becomes clearer without constant social noise interfering. In solitude, you begin to hear yourself again, not the version shaped by reaction, but the one guided by principle. You notice subtle shifts. You react less. You need less stimulation. You feel grounded even in silence. Stoicism teaches that solitude is not loneliness when it is chosen. Loneliness is disconnection from the self. Solitude is presence without distraction. It is where self-command strengthens. Many never reach this phase because they mistake constant connection for fulfillment. They fill every gap with noise, people, and distraction. But when you step away from that, something deeper forms. Clarity. You become aware of what drains you and what sustains you. You recognize patterns once invisible. You understand which relationships were built on habit, which on need, and which on truth. This is why Stoic alignment can look like isolation from the outside. Fewer interactions, more intentional choices, greater distance from what once felt essential. This phase is temporary in its solitude, even if permanent in its effect. You are not withdrawing from life. You are recalibrating how you engage with it. Seneca wrote that time alone is necessary to examine the self and strengthen judgment. Without it, growth stays shallow. With it, character becomes solid. Eventually, something shifts. You stop needing to be surrounded to feel whole. You stop measuring worth by proximity. You stop confusing presence with connection. And when that happens, new relationships form naturally. Not from lack, not from loneliness, from alignment. These connections move slower. They feel steadier. They demand less explanation. They meet you where you are now, not where you used to be. If you are in a season where people have fallen away and silence feels more frequent, do not rush to fill it. Do not assume something went wrong. In Stoic terms, this is often the final stage before expansion, a phase where the unnecessary falls away so the essential can remain. You are not alone because you are failing. You are alone because you are aligning, and alignment always begins in quiet. When people start leaving your life, it is natural to question yourself, to wonder if you changed too much or lost your place. Stoic philosophy offers a steadier truth. Not every ending is a loss. Not every quiet season is a mistake. As you become more grounded and self-directed, fewer relationships can remain close, not because you grew distant, but because you grew aligned. You stopped performing, you stopped overgiving, you stopped choosing familiarity over peace, and by doing so, you allowed reality to reveal itself. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that we are here to live according to our nature, not to be carried by the opinions of others. When you honor that, life may become quieter, but it also becomes clearer. Let people leave if they must. What remains will be honest, stable, and real. And what comes next will meet you not as who you were, but as who you have become. Sometimes fewer people is not a setback. It is proof that you are walking your own path.